Hey, what is up, guys? Welcome back to US Election Hub, and today we're going to be doing a 2020 Republican primary election prediction between John Kasich and Donald Trump. Just one thing to note that John Kasich is not running as a Democrat here, but he is just pretend this is just the Republican primary. And so we're going to be seeing what happens and who would succeed in a primary against Donald Trump. Remember, he's the incumbent Republican president, and John Kasich, another Republican, may primary him and try to take the Republican nomination away from Donald Trump. And so we're going to be exploring the avenues of how successful John Kasich can be. And so without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it. So let's look at some of the challenges first of all. John Kasich has to deal with high Republican approval for Donald Trump. Around 84% of Republicans currently support Donald Trump, which is a very, very high number. But if that approval number goes down to anywhere like I believe around 75% or lower, this is a good opportunity for John Kasich to primary Donald Trump. A second thing is John Kasich is actually a very strong general election candidate. Not many polls have been done with John Kasich against different individuals, but John Kasich versus Joe Biden in a state like New Hampshire, that's going to be extremely competitive. And take a look at this. If John Kasich went up against Elizabeth Warren in the state of New Hampshire, John Kasich would win the state. Now, these polls have very little significance because, they're election polls only if John Kasich were the nominee. Polls between John Kasich and Donald Trump show that John Kasich currently does not have the support to dethrone Donald Trump in some of these races. But he will, if depending on what happens with the Mueller investigation and if any Russia findings or whatever, if you follow that stuff, if Donald Trump's approval tanks even further with Republicans, then we could be seeing a legitimate primary with John Kasich and a successful one too. So without further ado, let's go ahead and take a look at the 2016 Republican primary. And we're going to be looking at the states where John Kasich did very well. These are the states that he came second in. And take a look at this. New Hampshire, which is the second state to vote in a primary, I believe they vote in February of 2020. And so winning this state is very important because if Kasich can win the state, it shows that Kasich can actually make a run for the presidency under the Republican nomination. If he can pull off a victory in New Hampshire, that also means that he'll likely be able to pull off victory elsewhere, and that's going to be very important for a race in the upcoming months or year. So let's go back to the election map and look at places that John Kasich would start out. So first of all, John Kasich would carry New Hampshire, but the primary right before that, or the caucus actually, is the Iowa caucus, and so Donald Trump will likely still hold on to the Iowa caucus. So let's just assume John Kasich stays in the primary, and now let's see which states he's going to win. So John Kasich does really well with the Northeast, so let's go ahead and give him the entire Northeast. This is going to go all the way to John Kasich, all these states right here. These are all John Kasich states. John Kasich also won one state in 2016, and that was his home state of Ohio. Now, that's actually a big win for John Kasich if he can pull off a win in Ohio in 2020. Now, what other states could John Kasich win? Well, he'll take off Vermont and he'll likely carry Maine as well. And so that's actually a very good combo, especially for the Northeast over here. Now, we also need to understand, where is John Kasich a strong candidate for? Well, he's really strong among, wealthy Republicans, but he's also very strong among suburban Republicans and women. This is where he does very well. Why? Because he's more of a moderate. He's a moderate conservative, not a moderate, like a moderate or centrist. He's a moderate conservative. He has some centrist positions, but he has he just performs a lot better in polling. He's just seen as a better candidate, and he does better among educated voters. So where else can he win? He can win in Virginia. Virginia has a lot of educated voters. Minnesota went for Marco Rubio last time in 2016. It did not go for Donald Trump, so this would actually go to John Kasich. Now let's go ahead and fill in some Trump states. Trump would likely carry the Indiana primary. He would likely end up carrying his home state. If we go back here to the 2016 nomination, let's just look at states Donald Trump won. It's going to be a little more difficult for Donald Trump against someone like John Kasich. But let's see places where he came in second: Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas. Um, Taking a look at all this, Donald Trump still has a decent chance to win a number of states. So he'll likely carry West Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee. A lot of these southern states will likely still go to Donald Trump. We're gonna leave Georgia blank for now. He'll likely end up getting Florida, Louisiana, Arkansas, Missouri, Oklahoma, and he'd likely carry Texas this time. So, that's already not good news for someone like John Kasich, but John Kasich would actually take Alaska. Donald Trump has attacked Alaska on a number of times, especially Alaska's Senator Lisa Murkowski, so maybe that will hurt Donald Trump. I think the population in Hawaii will go for John Kasich. We're gonna leave these states over here, the Rust Belt, blank for now. But Illinois, I can see John Kasich winning Illinois. Filling in the rest of these states likely go for Donald Trump. These are going to be strong Trump states. But if we go ahead and go back here to the 2016 Republican nomination and John Kasich, look where he did well: Utah, New Mexico, and California. Let's go ahead and add that to his total: California, Utah, and New Mexico. I also think John Kasich would do particularly well in Colorado and these other Democratic areas like Oregon, Washington, Arizona, and Nevada. I also think in an upset victory that John Kasich could pull off a victory in Georgia. And so this would be, it would be a very close race between Donald Trump and John Kasich. John Kasich would need to win one of these Rust Belt states to essentially pull off a primary upset and essentially dethrone Donald Trump as the Republican nominee. So if he won Pennsylvania, then Donald Trump can win these other two states and he'll be perfectly fine. He'll end up winning the nomination, but these states are really unsure about, so let's go ahead and leave them like that. Anyways, guys, thank you guys so much for watching. This was a potential primary between Donald Trump and John Kasich, and as you can see, John Kasich would give a big run of his money for against Donald Trump, and he could be successful. There's enough states on this map for John Kasich to, pull off a victory. All John Kasich has to do is win the normally Democratic states with more suburban populations and urban populations. He needs to win educated states, and he also needs to win some of these, contentious states over here, like Ohio and Virginia and Illinois, in a Republican primary, and he would be on his way to becoming the next Republican nominee and even maybe the next Republican president. Who knows? Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and see you guys next time.